In September of 2018, John and I embarked on a cruise to the coastal waterways of Alaska. We left the port of Seattle and sailed to Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway, and then docked for an afternoon in the city of Victoria, British Columbia, before ending back in Seattle. We set sail on the Norwegian Bliss, which was on her maiden year voyage. She was very beautiful and very large. Joining us on the cruise were my two brothers, their families, and friends. Our first port was Ketchikan, a quaint fishing village built in the side of a mountain covered with Sitka spruce, hemlock, and white spruce. It actually smelled like Christmas. Ketchikan is the fourth most populous city in the state, with about 14,000 residents. The local economy is based on tourism and fishing, and if you cruise to Alaska, you have to stop at this port and do your shopping here. There are great bargains. Ketchikan has the largest collection of totem poles in the world, and southeast Alaska is actually a rainforest, with an average rainfall of over 14 feet a year. The temperature actually does not usually change more than 35 degrees, and it's the largest temperate rainforest in the world. While in Ketchikan, we decided to tour the fjord on the Ketchikan Duck Tour. We found the tour very safe and very informative. Would highly recommend it if you are in the area. On to our next port. Surprise, that early morning we got to see some northern lights. We arrived really early in the morning to the state capital of Juneau, and it did not disappoint. The morning was very clear, and we got some really good shots of the Chilkoot Mountains. We actually have 3 excursions today: whale watching, a hike to a glacier, and then taking a trip down one of the fjords on the ship to see another glacier. Our last Alaskan port was Skagway, the gateway the stampeders used to get to the great gold fields of Canada in the late 1890s. Here we boarded the White Pass and Yukon Railroad for the 20-mile trip up the 3,000 feet to White Pass summit. The scenery was spectacular. The story of the stampeders was captivating. At Rocky Point, you can see Mount Harding and the Harding Glacier. As we chugged along, we passed Buchanan Rock, which 70 years ago was painted by the Buchanan's Boys Tour Group to honor their tour leader, who brought them from Detroit each year during the 20s. Tunnel Mountain is the first tunnel that is 1,000 feet over the floor of Glacier Gorge. Gold was actually discovered in the Yukon Territory in 1896, and the gold rush, known as the Klondike Gold Rush, went into full force at that time. The original stampeders, as the prospectors were called, traversed this landscape by foot. Of the estimated 100,000 stampeders that began the journey, it's estimated that less than half survived. The railroad wasn't started until 1898, and it took 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days to build. Dead Horse Gulch is the site where the 3,000 horses brought by the mining stampeders died on the way up the trail, primarily due to the lack of food, water, and the stress of the climb. The steel bridge in the distance was constructed in the winter of 1901. It's the tallest cantilever bridge in the world and was used until 1969. It was quite the relief when we turned the corner to discover that we were using a newer bridge and a newer tunnel that was built in 1969. At various points along the way, we could see the remnants of the original White Pass Trail, the trail that was used by the stampeders to make their 20-plus trips over the pass to the Yukon in order to transport the ton of supplies that was required by the Canadian authorities to gain access to Canada's gold fields. Our train ride ended at the summit, where the engine moved to the back of the train to take us back down. The stampeders, on the other hand, had another 20 miles to get to Bennett, British Columbia. They would winter there, building makeshift rafts and boats to take them across Lake Bennett and down the Yukon River to the gold fields another 60 miles away. John and I both felt that the highlight of our trip was the helicopter ride to the Meade Glacier in the Chilkoot Mountain Range. The Juneau Ice Field is an ice field located just north of Juneau, Alaska. It continues north through the border with British Columbia, extending through an area of 1,500 square miles in the coastal range, ranging 87 miles north to south and 47 miles east to west. The ice field is the source of many glaciers, including the Mendenhall Glacier, the Meade Glacier, and the Taku Glacier. The ice field is home to over 40 large valley glaciers and 100 smaller ones. It serves as a tourist attraction, which we took part in, with many travelers flown in by helicopter for quick walks on the 790 to 4,590 feet deep ice and the massive, awe-inspiring moist crevices. The ice field, like many of its glaciers, reached its maximum glacial point around 1700 and has been in retreat ever since. In fact, the ice field's 19 notable glaciers, the Taku Glacier is the only one presently advancing. Much of the ice field is contained within the Tongass National Forest. Since 1948, the Juneau Ice Field Research Program has monitored glaciers in the Juneau Ice Field. On the west side of the ice field, from 1946 to 2009, the terminus of the Mendenhall Glacier has retreated over half a mile.
giant hole that can form out here. It's all just formed by this meltwater coming along the surface. As the glacier is moving down, the top layer is rather fragile, and so if there's a change in elevation, it actually causes these little tiny fractures to happen. And that's where the water is going to go. It's going to exploit that fracture, and instead of traveling across the surface, it's going to dive down into the ice. So when this first started forming, sorry, what? Yeah, I'll send this guy down and give you an idea of why I want you guys to stay back.
Our final stop was Victoria, British Columbia. We decided to check out the Agassiz Gardens. Tucked away behind a stately hedge in a quiet suburb of Victoria is the magical Agassiz Garden. The home and gardens are the vision of Prince and Princess Agassiz. Visitors to the garden are also treated to a fabulous high tea. Goodbye, Alaska.